Hey, this is Brian,
And Shelby.
and you're listening to the Hyperspace.
PodBlast. Aren't you a little short for a podcast?
Huh?
And so it begins.
Okay.
Hyperspace PodBlast, number 81.
So it is, 81. And as we promised, a couple weeks ago, I think, we are going to talk about the Lost Stars manga today.
So, spoilers for the storyline of Lost Stars.
Yeah, I mean, if you're halfway through it, you can listen, because I think that's roughly how far it is. Maybe a quarter, I don't know.
I have
can't
no
really
idea.
remember. But if you're reading the manga, we're going to talk about the whole thing,
So, Brian, since I haven't read the book, where are we in the story?
Well, it moves a little differently than it does in the actual book, unless I'm misremembering. But I feel like it was a lot more linear, where the manga kind of starts you off and then takes you back to flashbacks when they were on their home planet of Jalukin, something like that. Anyway, whatever their planet is that only comes up once.
So, we're trying to get a diverse perspective. I am only reading the manga.
Right. And I read the book, and I actually really enjoy it. As far as my normal poo-pooing on Star Wars books goes, Lost Stars is probably my favorite. I often refer to it as the Forrest Gump of Star Wars, because these two characters are basically involved in everything important that happens in the saga, all the way through past Return of the Jedi to the Battle of Jakku. So these people just happen to be everywhere, kind of like, Forrest Gump met the president again and all that stuff. But yeah, it's a really good story. It's kind of like the star-crossed lovers Romeo and Juliet of Star Wars, which is kind of not a good example of what the story is, because there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, they build it initially as a young adult Star Wars love story, and it's like that's maybe 10% of what the story really is. More than that, it's coming from different upbringings on the same backwater town or planet, I guess, in this instance. And then how that sort of changes your outlook on things or doesn't change your outlook on things as you get into this empire and figure out what they're doing and all these other things. But it's a really good story. I definitely recommend it. And I highly recommend the manga. It is a blast to read.
So, what do you think? How do you think it compares to the novel? Did you enjoy it more or about the same? Or is it just a completely different experience? You can't really compare.
I think they're definitely comparable. I mean, it's following the story very to the point. Like, it's not taking very many liberties, except in, I would say, the character design. I do, however, have a bad habit of coming up with characters' appearances in my head and not necessarily taking what the author describes them as, especially if we're introduced to them and they're described later. Like, they materialize in my imagination, and then I sort of disregard what the author tells me later. They just become my character that I think of them as. And
Tolkien would be aghast.
Yeah, exactly.
But then again, he probably described them in...
Right, yeah, he would describe them as they looked from the farthest point away that you could see them, and then how they changed every footstep they took forward. But yes. Anyway, love Tolkien, just not his writing. Anyway.
Whoa. Okay, continue.
The biggest difference, I would say, the thing that kept coming back to me was the different versions of the characters and how they looked drawn, not just because they're in the manga style, just their overall appearance versus what I had in my head, especially Thane's roommate that's from Alderaan.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I would have pictured someone like that if they were just written down in words. Like, I don't know how I would have come to that conclusion. I don't know how you describe someone who looks like that.
Yeah, well, he's very androgynous, which is kind of a manga-esque thing, but he's got very long hair, which first of all, I think it's cool because I just would assume that the Imperials would be all super clean cut and everything. So that's how I assumed everyone looked.
It's interesting to think that they keep some of their individuality from their home planet.
Right.
Because I also think, I'm wondering, is that an
Alderaanian thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which also I'm just like, oh.
I know.
I love your braid.
And I like, it's name droppy when Leia shows up to the ball and Nash.
But also she's gorgeous.
Right, yeah, she's
Like, that was one of the most beautiful depictions of Leia I've ever seen.
The art in general is just fabulous. Like, honestly, as an aside about manga in general, if you don't read it, I highly recommend it. The stories are fantastic in just general manga, but if you're looking for a way to get into the visual art, non-animated version of Star Wars, I would start with this and not the Marvel comics. Not to crap on the Marvel comics, but I'm going to crap on the Marvel comics.
I like it whenever I'm not looking at a photoshopped picture of somebody's
Yeah, that's
face.
what I was just going to say. Like, you can tell that the Marvel comics, a lot of them, there's no love in it. They're just putting out work.
It's a machine. It's a factory, and it's churning stuff out. And I mean, some people really like it because it's uber realistic because it's from a photo. But
yeah, it's basically tracing. Like, if you've ever seen Chasing Amy, they're tracing, and they can't even get mad about it. But anyway, it's very simple. It's black and white for the most part. There's usually a couple of color pages at the front and the cover, but it's very, I don't know, simplistic but also intricate art, and it's a very stylized art too. So I mean, you might not enjoy it. It's not going to be what you're used to if you're only used to American comics, for sure. But that said, I think it works fantastic for Star Wars because it does such a good job of taking young type visual characters. Like, the characters always look young. It looks like it's for a young audience, but they handle pretty heavy themes, but they manage to also have their little, like, very stereotypical Japanese animation / manga breaks and humor.
So yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how it compares to other manga that you've read. Like, does it remind you of anything specifically, or does it...
Other stories, it doesn't... I mean, it just... The thing I like most about it is that it is a manga. They didn't manga-ize the story and, like, make it just look like... Kind of, you know how they said that Resistance is anime-inspired?
Yeah, because it's definitely...
And it doesn't really look like anime, or, I don't know.
It's a vibe. It's
right.
Definitely a vibe and a pacing style.
Sure,
So I would say, like, you zoom in on, like, part of their face with their eye, and you see their eye expression, and then it moves out, and you see, like, this, like, shadow cast over the character.
Yeah, it's
and
definitely
they're standing in a room all by
anime-esque.
themselves, and it's I don't know, the internal dialogue that happens for the characters, it's very manga style, and I really enjoy it. I like reading a story that way because I just like manga in general.
Oh, yeah, talking about the manga, what the point I was trying to make with that is, with Resistance, it's anime-esque. It's definitely, like, not actually anime. But this, they took the story and they made a manga out of it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. This is definitely 100%. It has, like, the little punchline-y things they say, and I'm just waiting for someone to have a nosebleed, honestly. Like, I thought for sure that Nash was going to nosebleed when he saw Princess Leia, and I was like prepared to die.
It would have been great.
Yeah, but
just saying.
Honestly, short of those little sort of stereotypical caveats, it's got a lot of the things you would expect.
The frame placement, it's...
Yeah,
I'm just so impressed.
They didn't take Star Wars and kind of put, like, a little whitewashing of anime.
Yeah, they didn't make, like, a manga art version of a comic.
Yeah, it really reads like a manga. And I think the reason that is because they are actually doing it in Japan. Like, and then
we've had to wait so
here.
long for this to have an English translation.
Yeah, they're way deeper. You can talk to our friend Dave. He usually posts something about it every time a new one comes out. It's at Norsk Arakuna.
We'll put it in the notes.
Yeah, something. Sorry, I got your Twitter handle wrong, Dave. Anyway, check him out. He puts up updates about it, but you can get it in paperback and in digital here in the US of A. And
it's just the first volume, right?
Yeah, you can probably get the whole thing. Well, as much as they have so far online, but,
Probably not a fish.
We don't condone stealing work.
Yeah. So what do you think that you get out of this style that you don't get in the book? Or is there anything that you are missing from this that you do get in the book?
No, I actually thought about this a couple different times when I'd stop reading and kind of just, like, reflect. First of all, I remembered a couple things that I'd forgotten about the book. So that was interesting to have this be, like, a reminder. But really, I don't feel like I'm missing anything. There's definitely some things that they've left out. Books are just more involved. That's kind of the way it is. But I feel like I'm getting the exact same story, and not like a half version of the story, or like, you know, it's not Lost Stars light. I feel like if you read the book, and as long as the manga continues the way it's going, read the manga, you're going to end up with the same story and be able to have the same conversations. I don't think there's going to be much missing or left out. Again, the big thing is just the visuals of the characters. They're not at all what I had in mind, which does not bother me a stitch.
You know what is crazy to me is I don't think anyone could write something to help me picture in my mind a younger Tarkin.
Yeah,
like,
you know,
that was something that I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That works. I don't think anyone could write something to truly help me grasp that concept of a younger looking Tarkin.
And I don't think she even tried. I think she just was like, okay, everyone knows Tarkin. I'm just going to put him in there. They'll do the math themselves and figure out that he looks younger. I don't remember reading this is younger Tarkin description. So either I just glazed over it, or it's just something she didn't bother doing. And I can see, like, as we've said before, the Star Wars novels are for Star Wars fans. So I think you can take some liberties with your descriptions and things, especially for larger characters that you can reasonably assume everyone's at least marginally familiar with.
Plus, the picture that they painted on their home planet was so powerful.
Oh, the one
to see the difference in the classes and
Yeah.
the Empire uniting them together, and truly, I think that seeing that visually,
Well, yeah.
like the differences in classes and like the Empire doing something kind of vaguely
Right. Yeah,
good.
it's very interesting to see that from some points of view, the Empire did come in, and yes, they kind of just like homogenize everything and make it very like
they killed
cold
the culture,
and industrial. Yeah, they do. They killed the culture, but in this instance, it like
killed an oppressive culture.
Yeah, kind of. So yeah,
like, is
good
it
for them? But it was interesting to see the hope that it actually brought. Like, because you see hope hammered away at as the rebellion, resistance, good guy like motif, right? And here you have hope coming directly from imperial takeover,
from the most oppressed people on a planet.
That is honestly out of this world stuff. It's pretty interesting. And I just like, from a story perspective, technically you don't know this happens yet, but
don't tell me.
Okay, I won't. Anyway, it's good. Maybe we'll do another one when the other parts come out.
Yeah.
But it's part of the story that I really like. It's a turn that you don't expect, I think. So.
Okay, I don't want to know.
Okay, sorry.
So I just really appreciated also the innocence that they were able to paint of the two characters when they're so young.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole, like, kids don't see a difference between the two of them, and them both like sneaking in together to look at the ships.
Right. Well, it's just like, I mean, you see all the time with like race and socioeconomic demographics. Kids don't care until they learn to care later.
Yeah, it's taught. Yeah. Absolutely.
And or it's not necessarily taught, but it's observed and then, learned. It's not necessarily explicit. Some people do explicitly teach it, which is disgusting, but that's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, but then seeing them growing up and having the same opportunities given to them because of the Empire takeover is pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's a different look. And it's one thing I will say about the EU in this new Disney canon is they definitely took archetypes and stereotypes and things like that very seriously in the old EU and just hammered away at them, where this one is taking a little softer look at the Empire and showing that it's not always, like, not everyone involved in the Empire is a terrible, like, malicious creature.
In a way, it's showcasing how terrible and awful things can happen. And how it's realistic that it can happen because it's the indifference of good people.
Yeah, how they can be perpetuated by people that aren't awful.
Right.
But they can...
It makes it much more realistic. Mm-hmm. It makes it entirely realistic and relatable to our world and the things that we experience because, that's the world we live in. It's not like everyone that was part of this terrible thing that...
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just like the Holocaust. They're like, how did you stand there and do that?
Well, they were my neighbor, and I knew them from when I grew up, and they're not bad people. They're just doing their job.
Yeah, and that, and then you have all this border patrol people who are like, how are you taking kids from their families? And it's just like, I don't know. That's what they told me to do. I'm sure it'll be fine later, right? And then you go down in history as a forking asshole.
Yes.
Bullshit.
Nice. Good place references there.
Yeah, that's a good show. You should watch it.
What do you think, or who do you think is the target audience for this manga?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think I tried to say earlier, but I don't know if I actually finished my sentence or not. But the beauty of manga is that it can reach the broad audience that Star Wars is supposedly for, right? Like, kids can look at it and it has somewhat youthful oriented art, and it has the goofy one-liners and little, manga nods where you get
people are being silly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's comical. It's really funny.
Yeah, and at the same time it's dealing with these themes we've been talking about. So
especially whenever you're seeing the depiction of the destruction of Alderaan in this manga, how powerful is that? I mean, that's a very adult.
Yeah, well, and the first pictures that you see where it's all tranquil and just like there's this one spread of a city in Alderaan that is just gorgeous. It's always impressive to me how much they can do with so little in manga, because it's really just white paper with outlines for the most part. There's not even really shading or anything like that. This is some pretty good skill, in my humble opinion, as someone who can't even draw stick figures. But yeah, it goes from that, and then like you said, it has this like butterfly and this mom with the child, and it's all very serene, and like they just look up and like, what's that light? And then
I mean, and like the whole time that you're watching this, and you're
exactly.
just like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Stabbed to the heart. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an enjoyable story to read when you know everything else about Star Wars, about the main story.
Well, yeah, you know every turn that's about to happen. It's just interesting to see it through these different perspectives. And it's a real page turner. I mean, manga in general is pretty like whoosh, 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 but you really got to stop and enjoy that art too. But yeah, I made it through the whole thing really quickly. And like I said, I don't feel like I'm missing anything really.
Yeah, and the facial expressions that they put with these characters truly conveys how they're feeling about things, and it does a really good transition of internal thought as well as verbal communication between the characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they hit on the like the romantic tension between Thane and Sienna really well. Just, yeah, everything's really good.
And just the overall stress of existing in the Imperial Academy.
Oh yeah, it looks terrible. I would definitely have quit.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't. You're Han Solo.
Yeah. I would not have gotten kicked out though. I wouldn't have lasted long enough to get kicked out. I would have been like, "This is not bye. See ya. I'm gonna go scrub toilets or something."
Me, on the other hand.
Yeah, you'd be first in your class.
I would probably thrive on that kind of high stress environment.
Yeah, I think so.
But it would be awful.
Good for you.
And miserable.
You would be the new Ray Sloan for sure.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for you, it's hard for people, I think, to be honest about the fact that,
yeah, that you would be like a quote unquote bad guy.
I would be a bad guy.
Although, like I said, they're doing a lot for, and I mean, Finn's a good example of that, though that's a whole different can of worms. How many times am I going to talk about cans of worms this episode? At least 2, maybe 3 that I don't remember.
I feel like it would be better. It's like a box of puppies. That's something that you just don't put back.
Yeah, that's a whole nother box of puppies that I have to feed now because I can't get rid of them. Yeah, a can of worms you just dump out.
Right?
Who really cares?
But box of puppies, oh my gosh.
That was a tangent. Anyway. Yeah, they're doing a really good job of humanizing a lot of the Empire and not making it so like evil machine and everyone involved in it is terrible. So I do appreciate that. So good for you, Disney.
Absolutely. And I mean, to see her, you understand why she is the way she is.
Yeah.
And the Empire gave her the immense opportunity to be someone who she never could have been.
Right, absolutely. I mean, she was stuck in the loop of her
no wonder she
lower
has
class
such
people.
No wonder she has such loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting.
Yeah.
When you think about that in terms of our world today.
Yes.
I'm just going to leave it at that.
Today.com.
Today.com.
Mm-hmm.
Just marinate on that for a second. Okay. All right. Star Wars.
I like it. It's good. I like a good war up in the old
Stars.
space. So what do you think about it? Like, coming fresh?
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a hard time approaching Star Wars books. I just really do. Mostly because it's like a mental block in my head of always thinking of books that are related to movies as novelizations rather than continuation of stories or extra stories. Plus, I mean, I loved Thrawn. Didn't love Last Shot.
Boy, no.
And I'm about to start Thrawn Alliances, so I think that'll be good. But reading this was so easy and so intriguing and made me more willing or more interested in the idea of reading Lost Stars.
That's good. I definitely recommend it and the manga.
Knowing the story wouldn't take away from the idea of reading the book itself. And also, I would definitely audiobook it after this.
Yeah, I think audiobook is how I'm going to do my Star Wars from now on. I think I said that before, and then I didn't.
Yeah. But I like it a lot. I was, as someone who really enjoys reading manga, this was extremely refreshing to get more Star Wars stories in this fashion. And the fact that it wasn't, it really was a manga is what made it. If it hadn't been, I don't think I would be saying the same story. If it was just the same art, but it wasn't presented in that format, truly the format, I wouldn't be saying that. But
if it had been made here,
I don't think I would have liked it.
I don't think it wouldn't have worked.
It needed that specific tone and voice to it for me to be that interested.
Yeah. They honestly should just scrap all the Marvel stuff and do all their
buy it all.
From I hope somehow that we get an original story from either the same studio or even the same artist / writer. I would love it because this is hitting all the right notes for me. This is great. I mean,
this is
granted,
probably the best print version of like
it's
new Star Wars content.
Better than all the comics put together times 100. So just saying, which isn't saying much because the comics are mostly garbage.
Oh my gosh, Brian.
But anyway, I would love an original story Star Wars manga. That would be freaking terrific.
What do you think would work well in this format? Like what kind of story that we haven't heard yet that we really want to hear?
I think it would have to be something like this, something young adulty. I think
Eli with the chiss would be...
Oh, dude, that would be rad, yeah.
Right?
Eli and the chiss.
Always.
But anyway.
I feel like that would translate extremely well.
I think you're absolutely right.
Or even if we're going with people who we already know in the universe, a younger Ezra with his parents.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of story that would be. I feel like that would just be them hanging out. But
well, you would see them like beginning to kind of do their broadcasts and things like that.
I think a young Snap Wexley from the Aftermath books would be good. Snap and Mr. Bones. That would be a good duo.
What do you think, Princess of Alderaan?
I heard that they were going to do that.
Oh, yeah?
That book, they were going to do it as a manga as well. But I don't know if I made that up in my head or if that's real.
Stories of young Rey on Jakku would be good.
Yeah, that could be cool. Kind of like Forces of Destiny style. Or what was that other Star Wars Adventures? That actually wasn't a bad comic. That's just too kid-centric.
It's just a different age group. It's not targeted to you.
Right. Well, that's the nice thing about the manga. Like, I think kids of that age group could enjoy it, and I can enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with...
Let's get to the point. We just need to make sure that we're having more things that Brian enjoys.
Yes,
that's what's important.
Exactly. I'm glad that you understand.
You know, honestly, I think like something with Kira being
yes, that would be good. Anything with Kira first and foremost, and Kira manga
and
would
Enfys Nest.
Oh, see, we got all the ideas. Just hit us up, ideas.com.
Ideas.com. You're just gonna say .com with everything.
Exactly.
But imagine Enfys Nest.
That would be great. That would
be a really good one.
Yeah, you could really do a lot with that because you can just do whatever in Enfys Nest.
It can be very serialized.
Yeah, it could be the current one that we know. It could be our mom. It could be 1-2 generations ago. It could be 1-2 generations in the future.
Knights of Ren would be really good.
Bruh.
Actually, that sounds brilliant.
Knights of Ren done kind of like Berserk would be legit. That's much older. That's getting a little shonen. But anyway.
Or even like Luke's Jedi Academy.
Yeah, like honestly anything. Like you could do anything.
And I think
young Chewbacca in Kashyyyk.
Oh my god.
Boom. Please. Just anything. Just give me some original manga, please. I will buy it. I'll buy it for everyone I know.
So the last thing,
I'll teach it in my class.
I think we've definitely answered this is, would you recommend this to
Not
someone?
at all, it's garbage.
And who would you recommend it to?
Everyone.
Everyone. I
But
agree.
most definitely anyone who is maybe on that, do I want to get into comics? Do I want to be extra? Maybe it's someone that's only read a couple books, or someone that hasn't touched the EU at all, actually. Like someone that's more in your position. I think that would be the perfect intro because it's very accessible. It's good.
And it's not too long. It's in bite-sized chunks.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, who knows how long you're going to have to wait for the next one. That's going to be the real
Yeah, that's why I'm like,
poopy party. Having to wait, but
yeah, but I think it's just, I would recommend this to anyone who's even remotely thinking about enjoying something outside of the movies.
Yeah, and then you can just transition to reading all kinds of manga and being awesome.
Yeah. So if you guys have thoughts on the Lost Stars manga, or if you go out and read it and would like to share your thoughts, let us know on Twitter at hyperspace_pod.
Hit us up via email at hyperspacepodblast@gmail.com.
And you can always check out our content on hyperspacepodblast.com.
And Dave's Twitter handle is at NORSKAKIRUNO. I looked it up and I was wrong before, and I'm sorry.
But check out his writing on the Lost Stars manga. It's great.
Pocho.
Talk to you later, guys.
Bye.